Motion blur is a very effective way of shooting fast-moving subjects. If you have a long shutter speed, the object is moving across the frame during the exposure and it won't be really sharp. There will be motion blur, which shows the speed of the subject. What the shutter speed should be depends on the speed and of course the effect you want to have. So play around with the shutter speeds and see what works for which type of movement and how fast the thing is going and what do you want to achieve. So there is no right answer what is the right shutter speed. It all depends on what you want to tell. And the most common use of motion blur is moving water. It's a bit of a cliche, but when done correctly, it gives some nice results. And a tip, set the shutter speed to 1 second. Follow a person to a constant distance, make the image and you will get nice motion blur on the sides and the person will be fairly sharp. Very effective way of showing speed and exaggerating the speed of someone walking. Hi, it's Peter here. Fast moving subjects are hard to photograph, and in this video I will give you some examples and some tips how to do and how to make your fast moving object photography more creative. And it is also the topic of this month's 52 assignments. The topic is fast moving and the assignments are speed, motion blur, that was fast, what just happened. And some of them are really easy and some not. I will give you some tips on this video that will also help you make those assignments. And then the second thing is panning. Panning is when you follow the subject with your camera so that the subject is fairly sharp but the background has some motion blur or straight lines because the camera has been moving. And here again, the shutter speed depends on the movement and the effect you want to do. The best way is to use manual focus. That's what I usually do. I focus to the exact position or the exact distance where the subject will be right in front of me, and then start following the subject and pressing the shutter speed. The longer the shutter speed is, the harder it is harder to keep the subject tacked sharp. But does it have to be sharp? No, not at all. It can be slightly motion blur also in the subject, but that depends on what you want. And always when I'm talking about these things, these are just examples of how to do it, but breaking those and finding your own way is always the best thing. But start with the basics and then gradually make some alternations and differences to the method you're using. Playing around with the shutter speeds to get the motion effect you like. And one example of that experimenting is to pan to the wrong direction and see what the results are. There might be some really interesting results if you pan to the wrong direction. And the third thing, sometimes when it's really sunny, you cannot really get really long shutter speeds. That's where ND filters come into place. Especially variable ND filters are handy because you can adjust the strength of the ND filter. What ND filter does is blocks the lights from entering the front element of the lens and then of course reducing light that hits the sensor. So you will get longer shutter speeds and can make these effects even though it is sunny and normal without ND filter, the shutter speed would be too long. It will freeze the motion, which of course is something that you might want, but now we're talking about more of the blur in the beginning of this video. And a tip for this, if you have an Olympus or OM system camera that has live ND, that is also a very effective way of doing this without a filter. I've been using that quite a bit. And as always, there will be an extra thing or extra tip at the end of this video after my next tip, which is light streaks. Having a long shutter speed and the camera stationary, photographing passing cars, for example, you get really nice light streaks. This is not a new thing, but it is always fun to watch these type of images because they're something that we don't see, but with the effect of long shutter speeds where the light streaks go across the whole frame, you will get some nice effect. This also depends on how many light streaks you want it to have. It depends on the shutter speed. And of course, let's say you photograph in traffic, how much traffic there is. Play around with shutter speeds with this one again and see how it affects your light streak. It doesn't have to be across the whole frame. It can be shorter ones if you like that better. And there is also a tip for this. Live composite. Live composite is the absolute best way to make these type of images. It is quite unique feature in Olympus and OM system cameras. And if you don't know what live comp is, you might want to watch that video. Or that playlist. There is a lot of information about that. And then the extra tip. Here is an information about if you want to freeze the motion, some suggested shutter speeds which will freeze different types of motion. And here is a playlist of live composite where you can get some ideas for your long shutter speed images. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.